Hey guys and gals, welcome to RacerXOnline.com. I'm Kris Keefer, and behind me is a Husqvarna e-bike MC6. No, it is not a dirt bike, but I know most of you out there that ride two wheels love electronic mountain bikes. So do I. I'm somewhat of a newbie coming to the electric bike world. I do have an acoustic bike that I pedal, but I am not on the up and up when it comes to electronic bicycles. So I brought the master, Brandon Lesniak from P&G here. We're at their headquarters, and he is going to go over a tutorial for us newbies. I guess basically what to do when you get a new electronic bicycle, such as the MC6. So Brandon, take it over. I want to interject every so often because I have some questions for him, as you guys do as well.
All right, Chris. First things first, how to charge the bike. So on this new MC6, it's a little different than some e-bikes. What you're going to do is there's actually a little screw here on the bottom of the skid plate. You're going to unscrew that. And then you have the charger in your hand there. So this is the main battery cable from the battery to the motor. You're going to detach that from the motor. And then this is obviously plugged into the wall. You're going to then plug in the battery, just so. So if you have the battery still in the frame and you're charging it, you won't be able to see the bars on your head unit, which some e-bikes you can, because we're directly plugged into the battery. So if your battery is in the frame, your best thing you can do is wait for this light to turn green. That means your battery is fully charged. It will be red if it's not fully charged.
So from zero charge to full, how long we got?
It's about 5 hours, from full dead to full charge.
And also, so I'm going to go pedal. I'm going to leave my house. I want to go on a 30-mile loop, but I want to be in trail mode. Will I be able to make it? Is there a certain mileage per mode?
So there is a little indicator on the head unit for how many miles you have per battery charge. It's very dependent on trail, rider weight, tire pressure, a lot go into it. A good rule of thumb with a 720 watt hour battery that we have here, in full boost, if it's a mild trail, you could probably get anywhere from 25 to 35 miles, sometimes more, sometimes less. I'm 150 pounds. I did 35 miles in full boost on a 620 battery doing testing. So it all depends on rider weight.
I feel like you're not the normal guy for the e-bike. I feel like us e-bike guys that ride it are wanting to get in shape. So if you're a little bit heavier, it might be a little bit less.
Yes, 25 miles is a pretty safe bet. Like I said, it depends on what you're riding, temperature outside, tire pressure, rider weight. So there's a lot of variations into that, so it's hard to give you guys a good number, but 25 miles is a pretty good ballpark. The other thing to note here on the battery, so you can also charge the battery out of the frame. So to remove the battery from the frame, there's two buttons here on either side of the battery. You can slide the battery out of the frame. So on the battery itself, there also is a display that shows the amount of charge that is in the battery while you're charging the battery. So that's nice to know. Like I said, 720 watt hour battery. Cool little feature for you. I know, weights and specs and things are cool. For every 100 watt hours you're adding to a battery, you're almost adding 2 pounds of weight. So just battery weight. So a battery that's 620 or 700 watt hour battery to a 720, you're almost adding 2 pounds.
All right, so Shimano EP8 motor. We're going to talk a little bit about the modes. Brandon, hit us with, I guess it's just basic eco trail boost, and turning on the unit itself.
Yeah, so obviously on the top tube here, it's pretty basic. There's a power button. You will turn on the bike. We talked a little bit before this about the different modes. You have 3 main modes: eco, trail, and boost. Within that, there is some tunability. There is an app called the Shimano eTube app. So all the head units on the Husqvarna models are Bluetooth compatible. So you can get in there, change the modes on your phone. You can add torque, you can add max power to whatever modes. And cool feature with that is every bike has 2 profiles within it. So essentially map 1, map 2. You can go through and change all the settings in profile 1, be out there on a ride, say you don't like your setting changes, you can then go back into profile 2 and be back to factory settings.
And that's the parameters between all 3 modes?
Yep.
Okay.
So you have 2 maps within all 3 modes.
So for me, when I go pedal with my wife, she has another e-bike. I feel like her eco is so much better than mine. Like she's just charging hills, and I'm like, well, this is not right. So you can change that.
100%.
Okay.
Yep. Another cool feature is walk mode. So if you hold the down select button on the Shimano, it'll pull up walk on your head tube. What this does is you can hold the button, and for example, you're going up a hill, it's too steep to ride. Instead of pushing your 45, 50-pound e-bike up, you can hold the button and actually your motor is running, so it's assisting you while you're pushing the bike up a hill.
All right, a question that I have that I get a lot too, I'm a dirt bike guy when I go ride my bicycles. Some of you out there like to switch your front brake, right? Because on bicycles, the front brake for us idiots out there that ride dirt bikes is the rear brake. So Brandon, do you get a lot of that? The MC4, I guess you could just interchange them, but it's not so simple on this bike.
Yeah, we do. So if it's running a SRAM brake, you can actually just flip the brakes because they're reversible. The top and bottom are the same, and the mounts are the same. If it's running a Shimano brake or a TRP, you will have to re-bleed when you cut the lines. So if you're a moto guy and you want to do a quick, easy swap from the box, MC4 comes with a SRAM brake system, so you can just easily swap it without bleeding any brakes.
I recommend just dealing with it. I can just learn. You got to, before you quick get out of the driveway or the parking lot or where you're at, just feel your brakes so you know you're not going to endo or do something weird because you're coming off your dirt bike. All right, moving on to the suspension side of things. I know zero about this stuff at all. You asked me about dirt bikes, I know a lot, but when it comes to mountain bike suspension, I know it's an air fork. I know you got to put air in it. Sometimes I don't even check my sag. So again, I'm the guy who emails me all the time. I never check my sag. I'm guilty. I'm sorry. So what do I have to do? I'm going to get this bike. I'm going to take it home. How much pressure should I be running? Give us a rundown here.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, mountain bike suspension is just as important as setting up sag and that sort of thing on a dirt bike. So first things first, on the fork, Fox and RockShox are really helpful with a rider weight to your recommended or baseline setting for an air pressure in the fork tube here. So it's written at the bottom. So we'll go off your weight, get a good baseline in there, and then throw in the correct pressure on the left-hand side of the fork. This Fox 38 has a ton of adjustments. So it has high speed and low speed compression and high speed and low speed rebound. So I know that can get confusing to some people and you can kind of get lost in the settings. The best thing you can do is get your settings, your stock pressure, go on the Ride Fox website, check the charts, start with their baseline settings for the clickers. They have a full rundown of every single setting for your weight. So we'll go in here and set this up for you. But that's kind of the baseline is start with what they recommend. Another cool little thing on these Fox 38s, they do have bleeders. So if you're riding all day,
you got to bleed the forks on an air fork.
Forks do
Imagine
need
that.
So you have a bleed on either side. You'll notice after a long day when the fork sits get hot, pressure builds up. You can bleed out the forks.
Now, bleed them fully extended?
Yes.
Not sitting on the,
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Another thing here on the forks, there's another bit of tuning for any air fork actually, not just Fox, not just RockShox. Doesn't matter the damper, there's actually air tokens. So what that does is, it's a volume spacer for the fork. So a Fox 38 comes stock with 4. That's quite a lot. You can actually only put 5 in the fork. What these do is they fill up volume in the fork and it makes the fork more progressive. So bottom outs, harsh hits, it's gonna ramp up more aggressively.
All right, so rear shock, again, like I said, I get my new bike. I think I might sit on it in the dealership and they go, okay, there's shocks that have auto sag. I'm familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
So explain this unit for us.
So this is a standard Fox float rear shock. So best thing you can do with a baseline is just based off of testing we've done in-house with our e-bikes. I like to tell people to start with 20 PSI over your rider weight. So whatever your rider weight is, we're gonna go 20 PSI over that, then check sag. It's still important to always check sag because this is just to get us a ballpark setting to get us to that 25 or 30% sag, depending on what kind of riding style you're gonna do.
So sag in the world of dirt bikes for me is ride attitude of the motorcycle when I'm riding, right? Like acceleration, if it's too low, I don't get as much traction, it's wallowy. How is sag measured in the world of e-bikes?
So sag is measured based off of, so essentially what we're gonna do is measure the stroke of the shock and then just take 25% of that, and that's gonna be that baseline that we want at 25%. So for this shock, for example, we're looking for 16 millimeters off of full close, which would be here. Once you sit on the bike, we're looking for this to be 16 millimeters here, this gap in the shock. Obviously, it's different depending on the shock stroke. You can always look in the charts on the websites, Fox or RockShox. The nice feature with a rock shock, which you'll see on our MC4, they actually have the sag percentages written on the shaft.
Yeah.
So Fox doesn't do that. You have to go ahead and measure it, which isn't a big deal, but you can get a good starting point with that 20 PSI over rider weight.
Now, how often do I have to check, one, my sag, number two, air pressures in these systems? Like, I'm very bad at it. Like I said, I just ride the crap out of it, put it in the shed, go back out, and I may not check it 12, 13 months. So
yeah.
How does that work?
So, I mean, in a perfect world, you should be checking, at least once a month, or just keeping an eye on it. Unless your shop or your fork is really having an issue, it's not going to be leaking air. So you can ride a whole season as long as you're bleeding your forks. You can check your pressure. It's probably within a PSI of where you started the season at. So definitely keep an eye on it is a good idea, but it's not going to hurt ride quality if you haven't checked it in a few months.
All right, newbies out there, same for me. Maintenance on the e-bike, again, not the best at it. One thing I do great at is checking my tire pressure every time I ride. So where's the optimal tire pressure for this unit right here? And give us a little bit of range if I'm gonna go pedal at a park with jumps versus I'm gonna go pedal somewhere where there's trails and rocks.
Okay, so obviously it depends on tire size as well. This is a 2.5 in the front, 2.35 in the rear. With front tire pressure, these are set up tubeless. Out of the box, our bikes come with tubes. They're tubeless compatible, so you can throw tape in them, sealant and a valve core, and they're ready to go. So if you're riding bike park or something that's a little smoother, you can get away with 25, 24 PSI in the front. In the rear, I like to run like 28 if it's a little rougher, to 30 PSI. Some people run it a little bit lower. It depends on tire casing as well, and then just like what kind of rider you are, same thing. If you're the guy who's really charging at things and not light on the bike, you're more likely to flat, so you need to run a higher pressure. But like I said, 25 PSI, 28 in the rear is a pretty safe, standard, tubeless PSI.
So obviously the heavier the rider, that matters for tire pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Railing berms, getting heavy on the bike, you want to up your pressure because you want to roll that casing.
Right.
So similar to dirt bikes, I would assume. Size of rider is not as important as it is on the bicycle compared to dirt bikes, but for me, I'm always in the ballpark between 26 and 28, so I guess I'm on target.
Yeah, in the rear.
Yeah.
You could try running a little bit less in the front, especially this is an XO Plus casing tire, so it's a little bit stiffer of a casing, so you're not going to roll the tire as easy, but you still have a 3C compound, so this is still that super gummy, soft compound, just a little harder casing tire.
Okay, washing this unit, what should I be doing? Like, can I get soap and water and bucket and get the pressure washer out? How does it work?
So we don't recommend pressure washing an e-bike just because it is an electrical bicycle. So when washing it, I like to hose it down, try to be careful just around the electronics, the motor. You totally can use a hose. Like, don't be scared of hitting it with a hose, but I just try not to hit anything when it's open. Definitely, I make sure all the plugs are plugged before I go in and wash my bike. Just be careful. Definitely no pressure washer. Hose is totally fine. Soap's fine. One thing with mountain bikes, not like dirt bikes, the brake pads and rotors definitely get contaminated pretty easily. So be careful when moving the chain or spraying any sort of soap near the rotors. It's easier to contaminate a rotor, I think, than a motorcycle.
How often to lube your chain? So I'm pretty bad with lubing my chain until I'm halfway on this ride and I notice that I'm squeaking and I'm like, oh boy, I didn't lube my chain.
Depends on the lube, but I'm one of those guys, I do take a rag, quickly run the rag through it while it's dirty, try to clean it off a little bit, and just a little bit of chain lube every single ride.
All right, something we just talked about here off camera that I didn't know anything about. He said, you know anything about the clutch? And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So explain what you're saying.
Yeah, so on the rear derailleur here, this is a Shimano XDR. It does have a clutch that you can turn on and off, and he said, hey, why would you ever turn it off? So the reason you turn the clutch off is to move the derailleur hanger out of the way, or the derailleur itself, the cage, to just get the rear wheel off. So we talked about it. You never want to ride with it off because then your chain has way more slap when you're descending and you have more of a chance of losing or dropping your chain off your chain rings. So you always want to make sure the clutch on the Shimano drivetrains are in on position.
All right, so that is a tutorial for you newbies out there that may not know a lot about e-bikes, specifically the MC6 here. We're gonna go out and ride this thing for a little bit and hammer it. Again, we will do a review, and I put that in quotations because I am not a mountain bike professional or sit here and tell you guys I don't know the differences in a lot of things, but I'm gonna give you my experiences with it, what went right, what went wrong, what I like, maybe what I don't like. So stay tuned for that over on racerxonline.com. We're gonna try to do more of this stuff because obviously Husqvarna is involved with dirt bikes and they're having the e-bike lineup right now. So you can go to husqvarnaebicycles.com and check out the whole lineup. Obviously, we talked about that too. MC6, there's MC5, there's MC4.
MC2, Light Cross Junior, and then we also have a Hard Cross line, which is a bigger travel, 170, 180 mil travel bike.
So stay tuned for that. We'll be back here. Give us about 2 to 3 weeks. I'm gonna be pedaling, shedding some weight for the wife, so can't wait. So you guys stay tuned. If you have any questions, Chris@KeeferInkTesting.com. That is my email address. I'm happy to help you guys out if you need it, and stay tuned for more videos.